My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The bank alert came first. Transaction declined. Account temporarily restricted. I was standing in my bedroom, holding my jewelry box, when my phone buzzed again. I remember thinking it was probably a mistake. My son sometimes used my secondary card for household expenses. I had never questioned it before. But when I opened the velvet box, the ring was gone. $3 million. 3 generations. My husband's last anniversary gift to me. Gone. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I just stared at the empty indentation in the silk cushion where it always rested. My hands began to shake, but not wildly. Quietly. Controlled. The way a woman shakes when she is trying not to fall apart. I told myself there had to be a reason. There is always a reason. Then my phone buzzed again. Family group chat. A photo. There she was. My daughter-in-law. At some rooftop party, champagne glass raised, flashing that ring under bright city lights like it was costume jewelry. My ring. And in the caption she had written, "Some things belong to the next generation ring sparkles." The comments were filled with heart emojis. Congratulations. Stunning piece. Legacy queen. I felt something shift inside my chest. Why was I the last to know? I scrolled up in the group chat. Pictures, videos, invitations. Everyone had been talking about the party for days. My son, my niece, even my sister. No one had said a word to me. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was erased. I walked slowly downstairs where my son was sitting at the dining table, working on his laptop. "Daniel," I said softly. He didn't look up immediately. "Yes, Mom." "I saw the photos." Silence. He knew which photos. "Oh," he said casually. That, I repeated. "She just borrowed it for the evening. You were resting. We didn't want to disturb you." Resting? I had been home all day. Cooking, cleaning, paying the electricity bill from the same account that was now restricted. "She didn't ask me," I said. He sighed. Not loudly. Just enough to let me know I was becoming inconvenient. "Mom, it's just a ring." "Just a ring." I smiled. "I see." He went back to typing. That was the first humiliation. Not the ring. The dismissal. After everything I sacrificed. I went back upstairs and opened my banking app. Access denied. I tried again. Access removed. My breath tightened. Removed? From my own account? Another notification appeared. Co-authorized user privileges updated. Co-authorized. Daniel. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt something colder than anger settle inside me. Calculation. This wasn't impulsive. It was planned. My phone buzzed again. Smart doorbell alert. Motion detected, 2:14 p.m. That was odd. I hadn't gone out today. I opened the footage. The camera showed my hallway, then my bedroom door, then her, my daughter-in-law, looking around, glancing over her shoulder, closing my door quietly behind her. The timestamp was from 3 hours earlier. My stomach dropped. She hadn't borrowed it. She had taken it. The audio captured faint whispering outside the door. Daniel's voice. "Just be quick." And then laughter. Soft. Contained. Confident. I paused the video and stared at my son's face on the screen. When did I stop mattering? I walked back downstairs. He looked up this time. "What now, Mom?" I placed my phone in front of him and pressed play. He watched. Expression unreadable. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair. "She was going to tell you." "She went into my room," I said quietly. "She's family." "So am I." He didn't respond. That silence was louder than any argument. I realized something in that moment. This wasn't about a party. It wasn't about jewelry. It was about position, authority, respect, and control. I went back upstairs and tried calling my bank directly. After security verification, the representative spoke carefully. "Yes, Mrs. May, a request was initiated this morning to restructure account permissions." Initiated by whom? There was a co-signer present. My fingers tightened around the phone. And was I present? Pause. No. That was when the room began to feel smaller. Someone had tried to adjust my financial access without me. And the ring. The ring was tied to the estate clause. My late husband had structured part of the inheritance so that ownership of the primary property remained linked to possession of the heirloom ring until probate finalized. Daniel knew that. I had explained it to him after the funeral. My throat felt dry. Had they taken it for more than a party? Downstairs, I heard laughter. Her voice this time. She had come home. I stood at the top of the staircase and watched them greet each other. She kissed him. He smiled. They looked unified. She noticed me standing there. "Oh," she said brightly. "You saw the photos, didn't you?" "Yes. Isn't it beautiful under the lights?" I told Daniel it deserved to be seen. Deserved. I walked down slowly. I would have appreciated being asked. She tilted her head slightly. "We're all family here." Family. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just nodded. "I'd like it back now." Her smile faltered for the first time. "Oh, it's at the cleaner." I didn't want to return it without polishing. Cleaner? It had been in perfect condition this morning. "That won't be necessary," I said gently. "I'll collect it." Her eyes flicked to Daniel. A silent exchange. Something passed between them. Then she said quietly, "It's already being handled." Handled? By whom? Daniel stood up. "Mom, please don't make this dramatic." There it was. I was the drama. I looked at my son, the boy I had stayed awake nights for, the child I had defended in school meetings, the young man I had supported through his first failed business attempt. "I'm not angry," I said softly. "I'm just confused." That was true. Confusion is more dangerous than anger, because it seeks answers, and I was starting to see too many patterns. Later that night, alone in my bedroom, I replayed the doorbell footage again. This time I noticed something new. Before entering my room, she had been holding her phone to her ear, and I could hear a faint sentence before she closed the door. "Yes, once I have it, we can finalize everything." Finalize what? My phone buzzed again. Unknown email. Subject line, urgent property adjustment inquiry. My heart stopped. I opened it, and that was the moment I realized this was never about the party. It was about something much bigger, and I was already behind. To be continued. The email was still open on my screen when I heard their bedroom door close. Subject line, urgent property adjustment inquiry. My hands were steady now. Too steady. That frightened me more than the shaking had. I clicked it. "Dear Mrs. May, we received a preliminary request regarding ownership restructuring connected to the Albrecht estate holding." Ownership restructuring. Preliminary request. Connected to the estate. I kept reading. "As the primary holder of the heirloom asset referenced in Clause 7B, your confirmation is required before any modification proceeds." Heirloom asset. The ring. My chest tightened. Someone had attempted to restructure estate ownership without my confirmation, and Clause 7B required the ring to validate authority. That's when everything aligned. The ring wasn't borrowed. It was leverage. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. After everything I sacrificed, I remembered sitting at the hospital when my husband was dying. His hand in mine. The way he whispered, "Protect the ring." It protects you. I thought he was being sentimental. Now I wasn't so sure. My phone buzzed again. Family group chat. A video this time. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was from the party. Music. Laughter. Flashing lights. And then my daughter-in-law, Melissa, raising her hand dramatically under a spotlight. "There's something symbolic about stepping into legacy," she said. People clapped. My ring sparkled on her finger. Then someone shouted, "So it's officially yours now?" Melissa laughed. "Well, some things naturally move forward." Forward? As if I were backward. As if I were already gone. I paused the video and stared at her smile. It wasn't joy. It was ownership. And that's when I heard something faint in the background audio. A whisper near the camera. A male voice. "Once the papers go through, it's done." Papers. My heart began beating louder in my ears. I replayed that 3-second segment 5 times. Once the papers go through. Done. I opened my laptop and logged into the doorbell cloud storage again. I didn't know what I was looking for, but instinct told me something had happened before 2:14 p.m. I scrolled back further. 1:52 p.m. There. Melissa entering the house earlier than usual. Alone. She went straight upstairs. But this time, instead of going into my bedroom, she stopped at Daniel's office. The door was slightly open. The audio caught pieces of conversation. "You're sure she won't check?" Melissa whispered. "She doesn't understand the paperwork," Daniel replied. My throat tightened. She trusts me. Trust. Such a simple word. Such a fragile thing. I kept listening. "The lawyer said we just need temporary possession," Melissa continued. "Once the ring is documented with the adjustment file, we're protected." Protected from what? Daniel sighed. "Just do it quietly." Quietly. They weren't worried about legality. They were worried about me. I stopped the footage. My hands were cold now. Not trembling. Just cold. For a brief second, a thought entered my mind. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe this was for tax efficiency. Maybe Daniel was protecting us all. Maybe. I went downstairs. They were in the kitchen. Melissa was pouring tea. She smiled when she saw me. "You're up late." "I couldn't sleep," I said gently. Daniel didn't look at me. "I read the email," I continued. "That got his attention." "What email?" "From the estate office." Melissa's hand froze midair. "What about it?" Daniel asked carefully. "It mentioned restructuring." Silence. Thick. Uncomfortable. Melissa spoke first. "Oh, that's just administrative cleanup. Lawyers always make things sound dramatic. Administrative cleanup. Without informing me?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Mom, we were going to explain everything." "When?" I asked. Melissa stepped closer. "We didn't want to stress you. You've been sensitive lately." Sensitive. There it was. The positioning. Not angry. Not confrontational. Just unstable. I felt the humiliation creep up my spine like heat. "I'm not sensitive," I said quietly. "I'm aware." Daniel's jaw tightened. "It's just easier if assets are consolidated under one household unit." One household unit. Meaning them. Not me. "And I am what?" I asked. "You're with us," Melissa said quickly. "Of course you are." But the words felt rehearsed. Like something said to maintain appearance. I looked at my son. "When your father created Clause 7B, I said softly, he did it to protect me." Daniel's eyes flickered. "It protects the estate," he corrected. "No," I said. "It protects me." Silence again. Melissa's smile faded slightly. "That's not how modern estate planning works," she said. "Modern? As if loyalty had an expiration date." "As long as I hold the ring," I continued calmly, "no restructuring can be finalized." Daniel's face shifted. Just slightly. That was confirmation enough. Melissa spoke carefully now. "It's not about finalizing anything without you. We just thought transitioning earlier might avoid complications later." "Complications?" I asked. She hesitated. "Taxes. Probate delays. Public record issues." Public record? There it was again. Why were they in such a hurry? My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a notification. It was a call. From the estate lawyer's office. I answered. "Mrs. May," the assistant said politely, "we noticed a file was opened earlier today regarding trust modification. We require in-person confirmation tomorrow before proceeding." "Who opened the file?" I asked. "There were 2 digital initiations from your household IP address." Household IP. My eyes lifted slowly to Daniel. He stared back at me. Blank. Calculated. "Thank you," I said and ended the call. Melissa's voice was softer now. "We were going to tell you." "When?" I asked again. Daniel stood up abruptly. "This is getting blown out of proportion." "Is it?" I asked calmly. He didn't respond. That silence told me more than any explanation. I realized something in that moment. They weren't afraid of losing the ring. They were afraid of losing control. I turned and walked back upstairs. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Measured. In my bedroom, I sat at my desk and opened the estate clause document again. Clause 7B clearly stated, primary estate authority remains tied to physical possession of the Albrecht heirloom ring until final distribution. Final distribution, which had not happened yet. If they had possession, they could attempt to push restructuring. But if I retrieved it before documentation was processed, everything stopped. I opened the party video again, zoomed in on the ring. Something caught my eye. a small engraving inside the band. My husband had added a microscopic serial marking, visible only under high zoom, to verify authenticity. But the ring Melissa wore, the engraving looked slightly off. My pulse quickened. Could it be? No, that was impossible. Unless the ring in her possession wasn't even the original. I stood up slowly, walked to my closet, reached into the back panel, behind the false lining my husband had installed years ago. My fingers trembled as I opened the hidden compartment. Inside, there was a velvet pouch. I stared at it, slowly opened it, and there it was, the original ring, safe, untouched. My breath left my body, which meant Melissa hadn't taken the heirloom. She had taken the duplicate, and she didn't know the difference, which meant only one thing. They were trying to finalize paperwork using a ring that had no legal value, and the lawyer would discover it tomorrow. I sat down slowly. They thought they were ahead. Sunday arrived faster than my courage. From the moment I woke up, my chest felt tight, as if the shadow inside me had grown heavier overnight. The house looked different that morning, brighter, expectant. My son was already awake, ironing his shirt carefully, checking himself in the mirror more times than necessary. I watched him from the doorway of my room. There was excitement in his movements, nervous energy in the way he adjusted his collar. For a second, I allowed myself to just look at him, not as a hurt mother, not as a frightened patient, but as the woman who once held this boy against her heart and promised him a beautiful future. "Amy, does this look okay?" he asked, stepping into the living room in a navy blue shirt. "You look handsome," I replied softly. "Your father would have been proud." He smiled at that, a real smile, and something inside me melted. I went to my room to change. I chose a simple pastel-colored shower camise, nothing too heavy. I did not want to look like a desperate mother trying to impress. I wanted dignity, even if my insides were shaking. Before leaving, I touched the pillow where the hospital report was hidden, just for a moment, as if I was asking it to stay quiet until I returned. The drive to Ariba's house felt longer than usual. He kept talking about her kindness, her ambition, her understanding nature. I listened, nodding at the right places, but my mind drifted to Thursday's appointment. 2 days away. 2 days until I might hear words that would change everything. When we reached their house, I was surprised. It was bigger than I expected. Modern design, clean white walls, a car parked outside that probably cost more than our entire yearly savings. For a second, I felt small, out of place, but I straightened my dupatta and reminded myself that dignity does not depend on wealth. Ariba opened the door herself. She was beautiful, confident, dressed elegantly but not overly traditional. She greeted me politely, touching my hand lightly instead of bending for salam. A small detail, but it told me about the world she came from. "Auntie, please come in," she said warmly. Inside, her parents welcomed us with formal smiles. Tea was served. Conversations began. At first, everything felt normal. They asked about our family background, about my late husband, about my son's job. I answered calmly, carefully choosing my words. But then the conversation shifted. Ariba's father leaned back slightly and said, "We believe in giving our daughter independence. After marriage, we prefer that the couple live separately. It's healthier for understanding." The words were spoken politely, respectfully, but they hit me like a storm. Live separately. My son nodded immediately. Too quickly. "Yes, uncle, I agree. It's better for growth." Growth. I felt my fingers tighten around the teacup. No one had discussed this with me. No one had prepared me. I looked at my son, waiting for him to glance at me, to at least acknowledge my presence in this decision. But he kept speaking confidently about renting an apartment near his office, as if I did not exist, as if I was already part of the past. Ariba's mother smiled at me and said, "Of course, Auntie. You are always welcome. But young people need space." Space. I forced a smile. "Gee, of course. Whatever makes them happy." My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Inside, something was collapsing. I had spent years building this house around my son. Every corner carried memories. And now, in one polite conversation over tea, I was being gently removed from his future. The meeting ended positively. Laughter, light jokes, promises to discuss dates soon. But on the drive back, silence filled the car. Finally, he spoke. Amy, I hope you're okay with everything. I turned to look out the window before answering. Did you already decide about moving out? He hesitated. We talked about it, yes. And you didn't think to tell me? It's not like that, he replied quickly. I was going to. I just didn't want drama. Drama. The word stung more than it should have. I am your mother, I said quietly. Not drama. He exhaled deeply. Amy, please. Don't make this harder. I deserve my own life. And there it was again. His life. Separate from mine. When we reached home, I stepped out of the car slowly. My legs felt weak, not just emotionally, but physically. A sudden wave of dizziness passed through me. I held onto the gate for support. Are you okay? He asked, noticing. I'm fine, I lied. But the world tilted slightly. Inside the house, I went straight to my room. I closed the door, not locked, just closed, and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands trembled as I pulled the hospital envelope from under the pillow. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry freely. Not because he wanted to move out. Not because he chose independence. But because I realized something terrifying. If the report confirmed something serious, if that shadow was what I feared, he would move out thinking I was strong. He would build a new home unaware that mine was silently breaking. And I would face hospital corridors alone. The thought was unbearable. A knock came at my door. Amy. I quickly wiped my tears and hid the envelope behind me. Yes. He entered slowly. His expression was softer now. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said quietly. I don't want to feel controlled. Controlled. I wanted to tell him about the hospital. About the shadow. About the fear that kept me awake at night. I wanted to say, Beta, I'm not controlling you. I'm scared I might not be here long enough to see your happiness. But the word stayed trapped inside. Instead, I said, if moving out makes you happy, then do it. His shoulders relaxed. Thank you, Amy. He leaned forward and kissed my forehead. And for a second, I almost broke, because that kiss felt like goodbye. After he left the room, I looked at the envelope again. 2 days. Only 2 days until Thursday. I pressed the paper against my chest and whispered, Ya Allah, give me time. Just enough time to fix this distance between us. But sometimes, time does not ask for permission. And sometimes, before you get the chance to tell the truth finds its own way out. Thursday arrived with a silence that felt heavier than any argument. I woke up before far again, but this time not because of heartbreak, because of fear. Real fear. The kind that sits in your chest and refuses to move. For 2 days, I had carried the weight of that hospital report alone. For 2 days, I had watched my son scroll through wedding ideas and apartment listings while I memorized the word shadow as if it were my own name. That morning, I made a decision. I would go to the hospital alone. He was getting ready for work when I stepped into the kitchen. I had already dressed in a simple gray outfit and wrapped my shawl tightly around me, even though the weather wasn't cold. Amy, you're ready so early? He asked, surprised. I have some work, I replied calmly, pouring tea into a cup. My hands were steady now. Strange how fear sometimes becomes numbness. What work? Just some errands. He nodded, distracted by his phone. A message notification lit up his face again. I wondered if Ariba knew about his plan to move out immediately after marriage. I wondered if she knew what kind of mother she was marrying into. A quiet one. A disappearing one. As he reached for his keys, something inside me screamed, "Tell him." But pride held my tongue hostage. Come home early, I said instead. I'll try. We're discussing engagement dates today. Engagement dates. Life was moving forward, and I was walking toward a room where it might stop. The hospital corridors smelled like antiseptic and uncertainty. I had always hated hospitals. They were places where people entered with hope and left with either relief or shattered worlds. I sat in the waiting area, clutching my purse, silently reciting duas under my breath. When my name was called, my legs felt heavier than usual. The doctor, a middle-aged woman with kind but professional eyes, looked at my file before looking at me. We've reviewed your scans again, she began carefully. I tried to read her expression, but doctors are trained to hide emotions. There is a mass, she said gently. We need a biopsy to confirm, but it appears suspicious. Suspicious. The room went quiet. I heard the ticking of the wall clock. The faint sound of footsteps outside. My own heartbeat. Is it? My voice cracked. Is it cancer? She paused. We can't confirm without further testing. But we need to act quickly. Quickly. My fingers tightened around the chair. Treatment options were explained. Tests. Procedures. Costs. Words floated around me like distant noise. All I could think about was my son signing rental agreements while I might be signing hospital forms. When do we start? I asked softly. As soon as possible. I nodded. And then I did something I never imagined I would do. I asked, can we delay informing my family until confirmation? The doctor looked at me carefully. You should have support. Support. I almost laughed. Support is not about who lives in your house. It's about who stands beside you when your world shakes. I will inform them, I said quietly. Soon. But deep inside, I knew I was lying. When I stepped outside the hospital, the sun felt too bright. Too normal. How could the world look the same when mine had just shifted? On the way home, I felt dizzy. Not dramatically. Just enough to remind me that my body was not as strong as I pretended. When I reached the house, I went straight to my room and locked the door. This time I locked it. I sat on the floor beside the bed and finally allowed the tears to come freely. Not the quiet tears of a hurt mother. These were different. These were the tears of a woman who might not have as much time as she thought. I imagined his wedding, his new home, Ariba arranging furniture, laughter filling rooms that were not mine. Would he visit every weekend? Would he remember to call? Would he regret pushing me away if one day I wasn't there to answer? The thought hurt more than the diagnosis. Around Maghrib, I heard the gate open. He was home earlier than usual. Amy, he called. I quickly wiped my face and unlocked the door. He stepped inside my room without waiting. His expression was excited. They agreed, he said happily. We're officially engaged next month. I forced a smile. That's good news, I replied. He sat beside me on the bed. You're happy, right? Yes, I said. Very happy. He studied my face for a moment. You look tired. I didn't sleep well. He nodded, accepting the explanation easily. Too easily. Then his phone rang. He stepped outside to answer. His laughter echoed faintly from the hallway. I looked at my bedside drawer where the new test papers were hidden. 2 envelopes now. 2 secrets. Suddenly, a wave of nausea hit me. I tried to stand but felt the room spin. I reached for the edge of the table, but my grip slipped. The next thing I remember was the sound of something falling. The glass of water shattered on the floor, and then darkness rushed in. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the bed. My son's face hovered above me, pale, frightened. Amy, what happened? Why didn't you tell me you were unwell? Unwell. The word felt almost ironic. He was holding my hand tightly now, the same way he used to hold it as a child when crossing the road. Did you go somewhere today? He asked urgently. For a second, I considered lying again. But then I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not irritation, not frustration, fear. And I realized something. Sometimes Allah shakes us not to punish, but to wake us. I looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time since that locked door, I felt the wall between us crack. Beta, I whispered weakly, we need to talk. And this time, I was not going to hide the truth. His hand was still wrapped around mine when I said those words. Beta, we need to talk. I had imagined this moment so many times in my head. Dramatic, tearful, maybe even angry. But reality was quieter, softer. My voice was weak, and his fingers were trembling. What talk, Amy? What's going on? His eyes searched my face the way they used to when he was a child, trying to understand something complicated. I slowly tried to sit up. He quickly supported my back with a pillow. That small gesture, so natural, so instinctive, broke something inside me. Because no matter how far children go, some parts of love remain buried in their bones. I went to the hospital today, I said. His expression changed instantly. Hospital? Why? Since when? Why didn't you tell me? The questions came rapidly, one after another, panic rising in his voice. I looked toward the drawer beside my bed. Open it. He stood up immediately, pulled the drawer open, and saw the envelopes. Confusion crossed his face as he handed them to me. What is this? Read, I whispered. He opened the first one. His eyes moved quickly across the paper, then slower, then stopped. The color drained from his face. What does this mean? He asked, his voice barely steady. It means they found something, I replied gently. They need to do more tests. He grabbed the second envelope and read that too. This time his breathing grew heavier. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded, his voice breaking. Since when were you going through this alone? I stayed silent for a moment, because the truth was painful. I didn't want to interfere in your life, I said softly. The sentence hit him like a slap. He froze. The room went completely quiet. I saw the realization settle on his face, the memory of his own words coming back to him. Amy, he whispered. I continued, not with anger, not with accusation, but with honesty. You were planning your future, your engagement, your new home. I didn't want to become a burden. A burden? His voice cracked. How can you even say that? Because that's how I felt. The tears that had stayed trapped inside him finally escaped. He sat back down on the bed and held his head in his hands. I thought you were just being emotional about me moving out, he said. I didn't know. I didn't know you were dealing with this. I reached forward and placed my hand on his shoulder. You couldn't know, I said gently. I didn't let you. For the first time in months, there was no distance between us. No ego. No frustration. Just a mother and her son sitting face to face with something bigger than both of them. When is the next appointment? He asked firmly, wiping his tears. Soon. They need to do a biopsy. I'm coming with you. The way he said it, without hesitation, without discussion, made my chest tighten again, but this time not from fear. You don't have to miss work, I replied automatically. I don't care about work, he said sharply. Why would you think I care about that more than you? Because that's what I had convinced myself of. He stood up and began pacing the room. I was so busy thinking about my own life, my own happiness. I didn't even notice you weren't okay. You're young, I said. It's natural. No, he replied firmly. It's selfish. I shook my head. It's human. He stopped pacing and looked at me again. And the moving out, we're not doing that. I blinked. Beta, don't make decisions emotionally. I'm not. I just realized something. He sat down beside me again. I was in such a hurry to build a new life that I forgot the life that built me. His words broke me in a way no diagnosis could. For years, I had feared losing him to another home, another woman, another world. But in this moment, I saw something different. I saw maturity forming in front of me, not because I held him tightly, but because life forced him to see clearly. What about Ariba? I asked carefully. I'll talk to her, he said. If she truly understands me, she'll understand this too. There was no anger in his voice now. No rebellion. Just responsibility. That evening, for the first time in months, we ate dinner together at the same table without silence between us. He asked about my symptoms. He searched things on his phone, not wedding decorations, but medical information. His forehead stayed tense the entire time. Later that night, I overheard him talking to Ariba in his room. His tone was serious. I can't leave Emmy alone right now, he said. Things have changed. There was a pause. I know we planned differently, he continued, but she needs me. I couldn't hear her response clearly, only faint words, but I could hear something else in his voice. Conviction. When he came back to my room before sleeping, he sat beside my bed quietly. I'm sorry, he said. For what? I asked. For making you feel alone. I smiled gently. You came back. That's enough. He leaned forward and rested his head on my lap, something he hadn't done in years. And in that simple gesture, I felt something powerful. Not victory, not control, but connection. Sometimes it takes fear to reveal love. Sometimes it takes the possibility of loss to show what truly matters. As I placed my hand on his hair, I whispered a silent prayer. Ya Allah, whatever test you are giving me, give me strength. But if possible, give me time. Time to see my son grow not just into a husband, but into a man. because that night, for the first time since the door had locked between us, I felt it unlock again. But neither of us knew that the real test had not yet begun. And the next hospital visit would not only test my health, it would test his promises. I woke up that morning with a sense of unease, not the heavy, paralyzing fear from before, but a quiet, gnawing suspicion. It's strange how your body remembers tension before your mind fully catches up. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the envelopes from the hospital, still unopened since last night. My son, now awake, was moving around the kitchen making tea. I could hear his footsteps, light and purposeful, but even that normalcy felt fragile. When I entered the kitchen, he looked up from his phone. "I've called the hospital. They said they can fit you in today for the biopsy," he said. His voice was calm, but I sensed urgency beneath it. I nodded silently. I didn't want to panic, yet the words felt like a countdown. We left the house together, the city streets buzzing with life outside, completely unaware of the storm in our small corner of the world. I watched my son in the rearview mirror. The boy who once held my hand crossing streets had grown into a man I barely recognized. And yet, seeing him now so concerned, so protective, filled me with a mixture of pride and sorrow. At the hospital, things moved quickly. The staff treated me efficiently, but there was a tension in their professionalism that I couldn't ignore. They spoke in hushed tones, avoided eye contact when delivering news. It made the fear I had held back explode quietly in my chest. As the nurse prepped me, my son held my hand. "Amy, you're not alone," he whispered. I wanted to tell him I had felt alone for years, in this house, in this family, in my own life. But the words got stuck. Silence became our language. When the biopsy was over and I was sitting upright again, exhausted and drained, I noticed my phone buzzing. A notification from WhatsApp. I picked it up, curious, hoping it was something trivial to distract me. But it wasn't. It was a voice note from Ariba, the woman who had almost quietly replaced me in my son's life. I hesitated before pressing play. Her tone was cheerful, but I could hear a strange undercurrent. "My husband is so excited for the engagement party. We can't wait to see you there, Amy," she said. The words hit me like a cold wind. Engagement party? My son had told me about plans, but I hadn't expected an entire family celebration so soon. And why was she sending me this voice note? Was it a show of kindness, or a subtle reminder that she controlled the timeline I wasn't included in? I froze. My son noticed. "What is it?" he asked. "Ariba, she sent a message," I muttered. "About the engagement." He frowned. "She's communicating with you?" His voice held a strange mix of anger and disbelief. "Yes, and she sounds too cheerful," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral, but I could feel the unease rising. The day continued, but the hospital visit lingered like a shadow. Later, when we returned home, I noticed something unusual. A package had been delivered to our door. I hadn't ordered anything. My son picked it up, curiosity evident in his expression. "Amy, it's addressed to you." I took the package and opened it slowly. Inside was a note written in neat handwriting. Some truths are better left undiscovered. Think carefully before asking questions. My heart skipped a beat. Who could have sent this? Ariba? Someone from the hospital? Or someone closer? Someone who knew me? Someone in my own family? I turned to my son, my hands trembling slightly. "Beta, someone knows something about me. Something they don't want me to know." His expression shifted instantly. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I shook my head. "I don't know. But this is a warning." The rest of the evening passed in tense silence. My son, usually talkative, barely spoke. He seemed to be processing more than I could see. And I felt the first taste of fear that wasn't just for my health. It was for my life, for my family, for the secrets that were starting to surface. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying every detail of the day. The voice note, the package, the hospital's hurried tone, the fleeting glances of concern for my son. It all felt connected somehow, a thread pulling me toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. I heard a faint knock on the door. My son's voice followed. "Amy, I can't sleep either. Can we talk?" I nodded, gesturing for him to sit beside me. He took a deep breath. Emmy, is there more? Is there something you're not telling me about the family? About Ariba? About anyone? I wanted to shield him, to protect him from the storm. But I knew I couldn't. Secrets, once set in motion, rarely stayed buried. Yes, Beta, I whispered. There's something you need to know, something I never wanted to tell anyone. His hands gripped mine tighter. Tell me, Amy. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years pressing down on me. It's about your father, and the reason I've stayed silent all these years. And in that moment, I realized something crucial. The past wasn't done with me yet. It was ready to claim its place in the present. As my son listened, his eyes wide with anticipation and dread, I began to unravel the first layer of a secret that would shake everything we thought we knew. Because some truths once revealed cannot be ignored. And that night, I promised myself, no matter what came next, no one would control my story again. My phone rang before dawn. I didn't recognize the number. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. Something in me told me to ignore it, but another part, the one that never let me escape, insisted I answer. Hello, I whispered. A voice, cold and unfamiliar, spoke. You don't know me, but I know you. And I know what you're hiding. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. What are you talking about? I managed to ask. There are things about your family, about your husband, about your son, that will come to light soon. And when they do, it won't be pretty. I gripped the phone tighter, fear prickling down my spine. Who is this? There was silence, just the faint hum of a line connected. Then the voice continued, low and deliberate. Some truths are dangerous, Nana May. Think carefully before asking questions you aren't ready for. The line went dead. I sank into my chair, the chill of dread settling into my bones. For years, I had protected my family from truths that could destroy them. Or perhaps, truths I had thought were safer hidden. But this felt different. When my son came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes, I held up the phone. Someone called. Someone knows something about us. He frowned, alarmed. About us? What do you mean? I don't know exactly, but it's serious. They said secrets will come out and we won't like what we find. He sank into the chair beside me, silent for a long moment. Then, finally, he said, Emmy, do you think this is about the engagement? I shook my head. It's deeper, older, something no one expected, something hidden. His expression hardened. Then we need to find out. Together. I nodded, grateful for his presence, but fear still gripped me. There was no escaping the feeling that the past was no longer mine to control. Later that morning, a letter arrived. No return address, no signature. I tore it open carefully, hands trembling. Inside was a single page, typed, stark. You think you know the truth. You don't. Stop digging before it's too late. I read it twice. My son, watching my face, asked quietly, What is it, Emmy? I don't know yet, but someone is warning me, I admitted. Someone doesn't want us to uncover what's coming. He stood and moved toward me, his presence steady, protective. Then we won't ignore it. Whoever this is, we face it. Together. I wanted to believe that, wanted to trust in his promise. But my instincts told me danger was closer than I could imagine. Danger that didn't just threaten me, but the fragile peace I had fought so hard to regain with my son. That afternoon, while I was reviewing the medical paperwork, I noticed something strange. The hospital had labeled my results under a different name, a name I didn't recognize. I called the hospital immediately. Excuse me, my records. These results, why are they under someone else's name? There was a pause, then a calm, rehearsed response. Please hold, ma'am. Let me check. Minutes stretched like hours. When they returned to the line, the voice said we were looking into it. Perhaps a clerical error. Nothing to worry about. But I knew better. Errors don't happen like this. Too coincidental, too deliberate. Later, my son returned from a quick errand, carrying groceries. I told him everything. The phone call, the letters, the suspicious paperwork. He placed the bags on the counter and sat beside me, hands clasped together. Amy, someone is trying to scare us. But fear won't win. Not if we're careful. I nodded, though inside. Unease churned like a storm. Someone had been watching, waiting, manipulating. And if the past was finally surfacing, I realized this. It wasn't just secrets about my husband anymore. It was secrets that could topple the foundation of our entire family. That night, as we sat together, I felt the weight of years pressing down. The years of silence, the years of keeping secrets to protect, the years of thinking I could control outcomes. The phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. My son looked at me, urging caution, but I answered anyway. The voice this time was different, closer, intimate, yet threatening. You shouldn't have involved him. Now there's no turning back. I held the phone tighter, feeling my chest tighten. Who is this? Silence. Then a final chilling line. The truth will come out at the engagement. And when it does, you will regret everything. The line went dead. I stared at my son, who looked equally stunned. Neither of us spoke for several moments. The room was filled with a suffocating silence, broken only by the faint ticking of the wall clock. Finally, he whispered, "Amy, we need to prepare. Whoever this is, they won't stop." I nodded, swallowing hard. My mind raced through years of hidden family matters, old grudges, forgotten promises, decisions made to protect someone else. Were they all about to explode in front of us? And then, as I sat in the dim light of the living room, I realized the truth. This wasn't just about secrets. It was about power. Someone wanted control. And if we didn't act carefully, we might lose everything. Even the fragile bond one had rebuilt with my son. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. My thoughts swirled with questions I couldn't answer, faces I hadn't seen in years, and fears I hadn't dared to name. By morning, I knew one thing. The coming days would decide more than my health. They would decide who in my family could be trusted and who had been lying all along. And one question burned brighter than all the others. Who sent the calls? And how much did they know about me, about my family, about everything I thought was safe? Because one thing was certain. The engagement was no longer just a celebration. It was the stage where the first secrets would be exposed. And we weren't ready. The morning of the engagement arrived with an unsettling calm. The city outside my window buzzed with ordinary life, people hurrying to work, children laughing on their way to school. But inside my home, tension coiled like a snake ready to strike. My son moved about the kitchen quietly, preparing breakfast with a meticulousness that I hadn't seen in years. It was as if he too sensed that today would change everything. I dressed carefully, choosing something elegant yet unassuming, hoping that no one would notice my anxiety. My fingers lingered over my necklace, a small heirloom passed down through generations. Somehow, it felt like a shield against the unknown. But even as I fastened it, a chill ran through me. Something about today didn't feel celebratory. It felt dangerous. When we arrived at the venue, the grandeur of the hall struck me. The lights sparkled, the flowers bloomed in perfect arrangements, and every detail seemed curated for joy. Yet, my heart refused to accept it. Each smile I saw felt rehearsed, each laugh slightly hollow. The family was gathering, greeting one another with cheerful faces that hid secrets and half-truths. Ariba arrived shortly after us, radiant in her dress, her smile wider than seemed natural. She glanced at me and offered a nod that felt more like a challenge than a greeting. I returned it cautiously, keeping my composure. The engagement began smoothly. Toasts were made, laughter punctuated conversations, and yet my mind wandered constantly. Every time I looked at Ariba, every time I noticed my husband speaking with someone in hushed tones, I felt a tight knot in my chest. My son, usually calm, seemed tense, glancing repeatedly at the entrance as if expecting someone or something. Halfway through the event, a whisper reached my ears. One of the relatives leaned in, voice low. "Did you hear about the old will?" Apparently, there were changes made without anyone knowing. My hands froze around my glass of juice. Changes to the will. That could explain the letters, the phone calls, the warnings. My pulse raced. Suddenly, the small voice of doubt I had tried to ignore roared into the forefront of my mind. What had been done in secret, and who was behind it? I turned to my son, leaning close. "Beta, the will, has it been changed?" He stiffened slightly but maintained his calm exterior. I'm not sure, Amy. That's why we need to be cautious today. I nodded silently, my mind spinning. Caution had never felt heavier, more urgent. Every laugh, every toast, every congratulatory hug felt like a trap I could step into unknowingly. Then it happened. The doors opened at the far end of the hall, and a figure I hadn't seen in years appeared. My husband. His presence had always been commanding, but now he carried an aura of something darker, secrets long buried, intentions unspoken. He approached Ariba, speaking in low tones that I couldn't hear, and I noticed my son stiffen. Ariba's smile faltered ever so slightly. She glanced at me, then quickly looked away. My pulse quickened. Something was unfolding behind the scenes, invisible yet palpable. I tried to focus on the guests, to distract myself from the tension, but it was impossible. Every whispered conversation seemed like a coded message meant for someone else. I felt the first real pang of fear, not for myself, but for my son. Something was happening, something I couldn't stop, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Later, as the ceremony progressed, a tray of drinks was passed around. I took a small sip, my hands trembling slightly. That's when my phone buzzed. I pulled it out discreetly. Another message. Unknown sender. Look closely at the gift table. You'll see who isn't who they claim to be. I froze, heart pounding. I glanced at the gift table. At first, it looked ordinary, but then I noticed something. A small envelope, partially hidden beneath a decorative vase. My hand shook as I reached for it. The envelope contained a single piece of paper. Written in sharp, deliberate letters, the ring she wore was never hers to take. The truth lies in its replacement. My stomach turned. The ring, the one Ariba had taken for the party, worth more than I had ever dared to imagine. Taken not as a gift, but as a message, a challenge. I looked across the room at Ariba, who laughed with another guest. The laughter seemed forced now, rehearsed. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about celebration. It was about control, about power, about secrets being tested in plain sight. I felt my son's hand on my arm. Amy, what is it? The ring, the gift, something is wrong, I whispered. He leaned closer, voice low. Then we uncover it. Together. And just as I made the decision to act, the doors at the back opened again. Another figure appeared, a lawyer from my husband's past, holding a thick folder. His eyes scanned the room, landing directly on me. My heart skipped a beat. I knew instantly that this was the moment everything would change. Because some truths, once exposed, can never be hidden again. And the engagement, meant to celebrate love and union, had become the stage for the family's most dangerous secret yet. I looked at my son, who nodded ever so slightly, a silent promise passing between us. Whatever was coming, we would face it together. But even as I braced myself, a thought pierced through the fear. Who would I lose first when the truth came out? And then the lawyer's voice cut through the room, calm and deliberate. Everyone, please. I need to speak to Nana May. Alone. The room went still. Every eye turned toward me. And in that moment, I realized there was no going back. The room seemed to shrink around me as the lawyer's gaze locked onto mine. Every chatter, every laugh, every clinking glass faded into silence. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping my purse so tightly that my knuckles ached. My son stood beside me, silent, his jaw tight, his eyes alert. I could feel his tension radiating into me, fueling my own nerves. Please, the lawyer said, his tone calm but firm. Follow me. I nodded, my mind racing. Questions, suspicions, fears, all jumbled together. Why was I being singled out? What could possibly be in that folder that concerned me so directly? We walked down a quiet hallway at the back of the hall, away from the glittering chaos of the engagement. My son followed, never letting me out of sight. Once we were alone, he closed the door behind us. The lawyer set the folder on a small table and looked at me, eyes piercing. Nana May, I am going to tell you something that will change everything you thought you knew about your family. My stomach tightened. I'm listening, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He opened the folder slowly, revealing documents, photographs, and typed letters. These are records that were hidden from you. Changes made without your knowledge. Decisions that affect your property, your finances, and your position within the family. I felt my heart hammering. My hands shook as I reached for a document. It was a copy of the will, my will. But it had been altered, signatures forged, names changed. My eyes scanned the details, disbelief and fear intertwining. My son's inheritance, my authority, even the control over my own estate, it was no longer mine. They did this. I whispered, barely able to breathe. The lawyer nodded. Someone in your immediate family orchestrated this. And the ring that was taken for the party, it's part of the same plan. A test, to see how you would react, to measure your influence, your power. I could feel my hands going cold. The engagement, the laughter, the toasts, they had all been a stage for manipulation. I had been blind, believing I was in control, that my decisions mattered. And now it was all slipping away. My son's hand gripped mine. Amy, we will fix this. We'll find out who did it and we'll reclaim what is ours. I wanted to believe him, wanted to feel that reassurance, but the weight of betrayal pressed down heavily. The people I trusted most, the people I had sacrificed for, loved, protected, they were capable of this. The lawyer continued, there's more. The bank records, the property deeds, even certain medical documents, they were altered to remove your influence. And this, he said, holding up a photograph, shows your husband and a business associate meeting in secret weeks ago, without your knowledge. I felt my knees weaken. The man I had trusted, the one I had built my life with, was hiding a double life. My son squeezed my hand, grounding me, but fear was relentless. Why now? I asked, voice shaking. Why reveal this during the engagement? Because, the lawyer said slowly, the engagement is a turning point. They believe it will distract you, that the celebration will make you compliant. But you are not. And now, you have the choice to act before they consolidate their control. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. The rage bubbled beneath my calm exterior. Anger at the betrayal, humiliation at being deceived, sorrow at realizing the depth of secrecy I had been kept from. But with it came clarity. The lawyer had given me the first piece of leverage, the first spark of power I hadn't realized I still possessed. My son leaned closer. Emmy, we can expose this. We can stop them before they take everything. Yes, I whispered, a flicker of determination replacing fear. We must. The lawyer nodded. But be careful. The person behind this is watching every move, waiting for mistakes. You cannot act impulsively. Strategy is your only ally. I understood immediately. Patience, observation, subtlety. For years, I had been patient, and now it would serve me in a different way. Not for compliance, but for reclamation. Then the lawyer closed the folder gently. There's one more thing, he said, his eyes locking with mine. You were never meant to see this. Someone went to great lengths to ensure the truth remained hidden. And yet here you are. A shiver ran through me. My son's grip on my hand tightened. The gravity of the moment pressed down on us both. And now, the lawyer continued, you have to decide. Do you confront them today at the engagement where everyone can witness it, or do you wait, gather evidence, and strike later when they least expect it? I swallowed hard. The choice was terrifying. Confrontation could expose the secrets immediately, but could also backfire. Waiting offered the chance for strategy, but prolonged the deception, allowed them to continue their games. I glanced at my son. His eyes reflected the same fierce determination I felt inside. We wait, he said firmly. We need to be ready. We can't give them the satisfaction of seeing us panic. I nodded, heart still racing, mind sharpening. The engagement would continue. The celebration would carry on. But underneath the surface, a plan was forming. The storm had not yet broken, but I could feel its approach. And when it came, we would be ready. As I left the quiet hallway and re-entered the hall, the laughter and music washed over me like a mask. Everyone thought this was just another happy occasion. Little did they know, the foundations of the family were cracking, and the truth, long buried, was about to shake everything. I caught Ariba's eye across the room. Her smile seemed slightly forced, just as I had noticed before. A spark of satisfaction flickered inside me. She had tested me, humiliated me, taken what was mine, but she did not yet know the depth of the reckoning that was coming. And then, as I returned to my seat beside my son, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. I hesitated, then opened it. The ring is only the beginning. Everything else is yours to lose if you do not act carefully. I felt a surge of both fear and resolve. The final confrontation was drawing near. The engagement would not end as anyone expected, and I was ready to claim what had always been mine. The evening descended over the city, soft golden lights spilling through the windows, but inside the hall, tension crackled like static electricity. I sat quietly beside my son, my hands resting on the table, steady now, controlled. Every laugh, every toast, every shimmer of the crystal glasses felt like a test. I had decided I would not act rashly, not until I had all the pieces. But tonight, the truth would come out one way or another. The guests were absorbed in the engagement festivities, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. My son leaned in, whispering, "Amy, they're watching. Every move you make, every glance, they're measuring it." I nodded. I had learned that patience was as much a weapon as confrontation. I kept my composure, letting the subtle fear I felt stay hidden behind a calm, dignified exterior. After all, they had tried to humiliate me before, to make me feel powerless, but that was over. Now, the power was mine to wield carefully. As the evening progressed, I noticed my husband speaking with Ariba in hushed tones near the gift table. Their heads bent close together, smiles fixed, but eyes darting, suspicious. I observed, catalogued, and waited. Every movement, every word, every laugh, it was all evidence, all a clue. Then, as planned, I stood. The room quieted instantly, as though sensing the gravity of the moment. My son followed, his presence a silent pillar of support. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "My name is Nana May, and this happened to me." I began, the words flowing naturally, confessional and raw, as if years of silence were finally breaking free. For too long, secrets have been hidden from me. Decisions made without my knowledge, actions taken behind my back, a life carefully manipulated to appear normal. Gasps rippled through the room. The laughter faltered, the music paused. I felt all eyes on me, and for the first time in weeks I embraced it. "The ring," I continued, lifting my hand to show the heirloom, now carefully reclaimed, was never just jewelry. It was a symbol, a test. And those who thought they could humiliate me, control me, and erase me from my own family, they were wrong. Ariba's face paled, her composure cracking. My husband stiffened, a flicker of panic in his eyes that he quickly masked. The guests shifted uneasily, sensing that this was no ordinary engagement speech. I glanced at my son. He nodded subtly, giving me courage. I opened the folder the lawyer had given me, revealing the documents and photographs for all to see. Every forged signature, every altered will, every secret meeting laid bare. "This," I said, voice rising slightly, controlled but forceful, "is the truth. Decisions made in secret, actions taken to diminish me, to weaken my place in this family, they end now." My husband tried to interrupt. "Nana May, please, this isn't—" "Silence," I said firmly. The word cut through the room like a blade. "You will listen, and you will answer. The family I built, the sacrifices I made, are not yours to manipulate." Ariba's lips trembled. I didn't. "You knew," I said softly, controlled, my disappointment louder than any anger could be. "And yet you proceeded. Why?" The room held its breath. My son stepped forward, adding quietly, "Because they believed we wouldn't notice. But we do, and we will act. Together." The lawyer appeared from the back, stepping beside us. "Everything she says is documented, legally enforceable, and you have crossed the line." My husband's face turned ashen. He realized the magnitude of exposure, the certainty that the manipulation, the secrets, and the lies could no longer hide. My son and I had reclaimed power, and the foundation of their deceit was crumbling. Then came the revelation I hadn't expected, but had been hinted at all along. Ariba, trembling, whispered, "There's more. The property, the account. I didn't take it alone. Someone else orchestrated everything. All eyes turned toward my husband. I felt a surge of vindication, tempered by shock. He faltered, then sighed, finally unmasking the truth. It was my associate. I was misled, manipulated into thinking it was for the family's benefit. I didn't realize. I let his words settle. The room was silent, tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. The betrayal had layers, each deeper than the last, but now they were exposed. I looked at my son. His eyes were fierce, proud, loyal. I realized the fear I had carried. The fear of being irrelevant, replaced, silenced, was no longer mine to bear. We had survived the deception, the manipulation, the humiliation. And though some wounds remained, the power had shifted. Let this be a warning, I said softly but firmly. Our family may have secrets, but they will no longer be hidden from me. And those who attempt to manipulate, control, or humiliate will face the consequences. The room remained silent, the gravity of the moment settling in. The engagement continued in awkward stillness, a stark contrast to the celebration it had once promised. But for me, it was liberation. I had reclaimed my dignity, my authority, and my voice. And yet, as the guests gradually resumed polite chatter, I couldn't shake a lingering thought. One unresolved secret, one subtle scar remained. Something deeper, something yet unspoken, waiting for another day. I looked at my son and whispered, "We're not done. Not yet." And as the night drew to a close, I felt it, a mixture of relief and grief, victory and caution, pride and vulnerability. The family had been exposed, the manipulations unveiled, and the power reversed. But the story, as I had learned, was never truly over. The final twist came as the lawyer cleared his throat, folder in hand, and said, "Nana May, there's one more document. You were meant never to see it, but now it's yours." And in that moment I realized the next chapter of this family, this life, was about to begin.